Good morning, Dan. And in for Amy this morning, Kristen McQuarrie from the Chicago Tribune editorial board. And Kristen, as more candidates enter the race for governor on the Democrat side, it seems to me that Rauner's greatest accomplishment so far has been stopping a tax increase. And that may turn out to be his most important accomplishment of his first term, because I don't see a budget in the offing. And I think the governor is even growing weary of these stopgap budgets, because he signed one last year under the promise of moving substantively in the direction of something resembling structural reform of state pensions. And that hasn't happened. So why should he abide it again?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he can get reelected on blocking a tax increase when he's pretty openly been supportive of one. That's something that could be used against him, I think, pretty easily. I don't know what he's going to do. There is difficulty in running for reelection on a theme of anti-Mike Madigan again. He's not an outsider anymore. His business acumen has not necessarily served him well. And so there is a question as to his effectiveness. And I think that's going to be difficult for him to overcome.
Well, just in terms of where the state of the state is financially, as if you don't feel it, but, informing what you feel with the actual data so you're conversant and you can share with others. Be an opinion leader within your circle of influence, why don't you? We're pleased to be joined by Sheila Weinberg, who is the founder of Truth in Accounting, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit group that is about to issue. It's actually embargoed until Monday, but she'll give us a little sneak preview. A new report that is forthcoming from Truth in Accounting about Illinois state finances. Sheila, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again, Dan.
So I guess I can sum up your forthcoming report in a single letter, and that letter is Illinois' financial grade, which is an F.
Yeah, so we felt that we needed to counter the credit rating agency scores, which for Illinois is pretty bad in itself, but it's still relatively high, with a more realistic grade that looks at the overall financial condition. We were appalled to find that the credit rating is really just a score on our bonds going to get paid. It doesn't look at the overall financial condition. It has little to do with our unfunded pension liabilities.
I was actually kind of surprised to hear you say that, because I do pay a lot of attention to the bond rating. We're at Baa2 negative, and Moody's consistently puts out reports, and did just recently again, warning the state that we're in big trouble. They wanted to see some sort of a compromise move out of the Senate to get a full year budget in place. That hasn't happened. But you're saying that even they are taking a too light or too soft view of our finances?
Too rosy.
Yeah, our finances and finances of other governments. For example, a lot of the suburbs also have huge pension debt, but they still give them AA, AAA ratings. But again, that's because they're only looking at whether their bonds are going to be paid. They're not looking at the overall financial condition of a government.
Well, right, and here's the other thing that's going on that's important to note on this whole issue of the backdoor tax hikes, which is called borrowing, not these bonds, not paid by the bond fairy folks, and Democrats moving to bail out bankers. That's what they're doing. Let me repeat that. The Democrats in the General Assembly are moving to bail out bankers with legislation like Senate Bill 10 and House Bill 278, which would create a mechanism for such a backdoor bailout of bondholders and broke governments, would allow home rule municipalities like Chicago to issue new debt that gives lenders special protection in case the municipality fails to back them up. So essentially the moral hazard for local governments by saying the state will bail you out when you fail or you're unable to pay back the principal on the bonds.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot like what happened to the banks when they failed on the housing crisis, and got bailed out there. And I think that the citizens are tired of people getting bailed out, and they're left holding the bag.
And give us some numbers to attach to what holding the bag looks like in Illinois at present, with as per your analysis.
Well, we've been frustrated for years, if not decades, that every year they come out with a balanced budget. Well, those balanced budgets have resulted, except for the last two, but those balanced budgets have resulted in a $210 billion, that's with a B, backlog of bills, pensions, that they have accumulated despite this balanced budget requirement. And if you divide that by the number of taxpayers in Illinois, you come up with 50,400. And the alarming thing is that increased $4,900 just in 1 year. Just last year, it increased by more than 10%.
I think that is a point that the governor will have to make when he runs for reelection, because a lot of people do sort of view this as just a 2-year problem. You heard Mike Madigan throughout the last session say, "Oh, I've been able to pass balanced budgets during all of the last few governors." Of course, those of us who follow this closely know that that's not true. Even Quinn had to strip money out of the budget, including raises for AFSCME, because the legislature sent him a budget that didn't have the money for what they were appropriating. So
yeah, but that money was minor. They did not
sure.
include billions of dollars of compensation costs in the form of pensions in budgets for years. They promised them to the employees and to the teachers, but failed to account for them properly and failed to set money aside to fund those properly.
And the overwhelming majority of the debt that we're talking about, the unpaid bills, the $236 billion worth of unpaid bills that your report identifies, the overwhelming majority of that, unfunded pension benefits, unfunded retiree health care. So it makes it clear that, look, unless you're going to do something to rethink the obligations you're incurring and how you intend on financing them, then at some point you're just going to have a breakdown and people are going to get IOUs in the mail instead of checks or health insurance coverage, or every single dollar that is raised and sent to Springfield is going to be used to pay pension benefits and retiree health care benefits. It's one of the two. And right now the number's at one of every $4 in the state budget goes to pension benefits.
Yeah, and I think we're going to reach a tipping point when, at some point in time in the near future, we're going to get to a point where we can't pay the mandatory things we have to pay: salaries, bond payments, and what we owe to the feds or for federal expenditures. And then when we can't pay those three, with the, quote, cash that we're getting, then the courts are going to have to come in and say which one of those mandatory things do you pay. Now the comptroller's been shuffling it around but when we can't pay those three, what are we going to do?
And could you talk a little bit about how much of an outlier we are, even compared to our neighboring states? That I think we're just numb in the state to these numbers, and we know the state is in bad shape, but we're just kind of desensitized to it. Where, you have a fully funded pension system in Wisconsin. You have a bill cycle in Indiana of 30 days, and we're up to like 6 months to a year. Sometimes I got an email recently from a dentist who's 18 months it took the state to pay him. So how much of an outlier are our finances compared to our neighbors?
Well, we do. The good news is last year we weren't the worst state.
We weren't?
Not the worst.
No, we do it on a per taxpayer basis, and Connecticut was, New Jersey was our worst, and then Connecticut followed that. Surrounding states, we are, Kentucky is relatively, is also one of what we call our top or bottom sinkhole states, depending on how you look at it. But, as you say, Indiana's looking, okay. Wisconsin isn't as good as, they do have a taxpayer burden of $4,600 because they have a lot, again, retiree health care.
Sure.
But,
1/12 of ours.
What we've done is you can go onto our statedatalab.org website and compare the states around us. And if you're thinking of moving, you can maybe look at another state. But not on just our numbers, but on 200 data points that might be helpful in analyzing the states.
All right, she is Sheila Weinberg, founder and CEO of Truth in Accounting. This 2016 comprehensive annual financial report will be out Monday. Get at truthinaccounting.org, or as you said, another site to keep track of this financial information is statedatalab.org. Sheila, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And she joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.